Thank you, Eamon, for that introduction. And hello, oneness. It's such a joy to be with you today. Today, I have the privilege of continuing our exploration of Oneness Core Principle 8. When Reverend Brian first shared the core principles with us, this one jumped off the page at me, and I thought, wow, I could give a talk on that. And look, here I am about to do just that. So let's refresh on core principle 8. Life is about the balance of freedom and interdependence. While every human being is completely individualized, we still live in and share the same world. Humanity has complete inner freedom. There is nothing that can penetrate or violate our divinity. Our inner state of being is ours and ours alone. Externally, humanity is entirely interdependent on itself and the world around it. Therefore, we must strike a balance between our complete inner freedom and our inescapable outer interdependence, and take both into account if we wish to co-create the best human life possible. With the grounding Reverend Brian gave us, first in ourselves as divine beings, and then in our interdependence, I'm excited to bring them together today. So I can't tell you that I'm the 7th of 8 kids without giving you a couple stories from my family. So the quick ones. So related to these principles. So when I was in high school, I missed the bus a few times. My dad imposed a fine, thinking this would alleviate the problem. He made me pay for the gas on the days when he had to take me to school. So today, here in Howard County, our schools are pretty close, but I grew up in the country in Maine and the schools were not close by. So it really was non-trivial for Dad to take me to school. So when I was home from college one day, my younger sister, Donna, she missed the bus. And Dad took her to school. And so he got back and I asked him rather indignantly, why didn't she have to pay for gas? He looked at me with this face full of wisdom and compassion. And he asked me, do you think your sister would go to school if I made her pay for gas? In the face, that face full of wisdom, I could see that he could see each one of us, each in our own divinity, our own uniqueness, our own offerings that we had for the world. It was such a marvelous gift. So another time, Donna and I, same sister, Donna and I got into an argument. I have no memory of what it was, but the verbal dispute ended and my anger lingered a bit. But minutes later, she appeared, her anger entirely resolved, and asked me if I would French braid her hair before she left for work. I was awestruck that she could ask me if I would do this, to pull and twist her hair, each segment of it, after we just had an argument. But there we were, illustrating the interdependence of a family and so much more. Hi, Donna. So today, I think in terms of this as the dance of inner freedom and outer interdependence. So this inner freedom, this idea of inner freedom, I just want to laugh and jump up and dance as I consider complete inner freedom. There's this word inner in there, but the feeling is so expansive. In going within, I expand without boundary. It is defined and it's all me. It's mine to explore and express. This is where spirit resides. As Ernest Holmes says, there is a vitality in our communion with the infinite, which is productive of the highest good. This conscious commingling of our thought with spirit is essential to the well-being of every part of us. Now, as I turn to look at the interdependence, I once had a teacher, Tom Ballast, who offered to give a $100 bill to any student in the room who could come up with something that they did all by themselves with absolutely no dependence on anyone else or any contribution from any other being. Think about that for a moment. Something you do all by yourself, no dependence or contribution from another person or another thing. Now, stop thinking about that. From personal experience, I know you could noodle on that for quite a while, and I'd like you to stay with me. Tom was confident that we couldn't do it, and no one could. He retained his $100 bill. For me, this demonstrated our interdependence, and that message speaks to me still. So seeing the dance, this dance in my life, in recent experiences. So I've had many wonderful teachers, those I knew personally, such as Tom, and those who I only learned from through their work. So Eckhart Tolle and Oprah are two of the latter. Eckhart says in his book, A New Earth, there are 3 words that convey the secret of the art of living, the secret of success and happiness. One with life. Being one with life is being one with the now. You then realize that you don't live your life, but life lives you. Life is the dancer, and you are the dance. Reflecting on this, Oprah says, the joy and vitality that comes from being that dance are unmatched by any pleasure you can imagine. What it takes is being committed to experiencing life's spiritual essence. And that is a decision you can make daily, to be in the world, but not of it. And from our very own Ernest Holmes, again, the greater the consciousness of God, the more complete must be the realization of the true self, the divine reality. As Reverend Brian has addressed this principle of life as a balance of freedom and interdependence, he spoke to us to know our own divinity and reminded us to know the divinity of every other person. Knowing our divinity is living life from our spiritual essence. In this interplay of freedom and interdependence, I've been challenged in the last few weeks, possibly always, just a little more conscious of it right now, this month. When confronted with a challenge, there are so many choices we can make. And when that challenge is with another human being with whom we have some manner of social contract, the full spectrum of emotional responses comes to the fore. Do I run? Do I hide? Do I fall silent and unresponsive? Do I lash out in anger? Do I laugh? Do I cry? Do I ignore it? So many possibilities. The key question, though, is do I respond consciously or unconsciously? Through experience and spiritual practice, I have learned increasingly to respond consciously. When I am, or we are, acting consciously, we can remember our divinity. We can then choose to engage knowing who we are at our spiritual essence. This is what I did recently when confronted with a challenge with another human. I was very concerned with how this challenge was going to play out. Inspired by Reverend Brian, I remembered who I am. I considered how I wanted to show up in the world. Who is the best me there is? In remembering who I am, I know myself as grounded. I know myself as grace. I know myself as a clarion call to higher wisdom. A clarion call to powerful wisdom. I'm back in knowing. I'm back in confidence. I'm back in joy, ready to act as a peaceful, fearless, fierceful, spiritual warrior. And what was the next step? The next step was to see the other person in their divinity. A mantra I find helpful is to remind myself to let the other person be them, do them, express as them. Let Marsha be Marsha. Let Harry be Harry. And so, in other words, I'm giving them the space to let their divinity shine through in whatever way it does. By being my divine self, I'm inviting others around me, to be and express as their divine selves. And there it is, the co-creation of our world. I'm not doing life without this person, not right now anyway. We are interdependent. What is mine to do is to show up as the divine manifestation of God that I am, and respond in ways that further the expression of the divine in the world. And that's what I did. Life lived me. I am the dance. We can make the same choice when someone shows up clearly forgetting their divinity and clearly forgetting their interdependence. We can show up as our divine selves and respond consciously. We can continue to create the world we want to live in. So that's some personal reflections. And then when I look out at the world and I see this dance in the world, so when I look out and I see the effects of this co-creation, sometimes it feels a little intimidating in moments, and the need to respond consciously knowing our interdependence is so very clear. Nothing can mask your inner freedom. Nothing. If we can set ego aside, quiet that self-critical voice inside, and know our divinity, know our inner freedom as the truth of who we are, we can more easily and comfortably act in accordance with our interdependence. I can't imagine, and don't even want to try, a more powerful confrontation with interdependence than a pandemic. What I do impacts you. What you do impacts the next person. And what that person does impacts the person after that. And so it goes around the world. It might seem a little odd to relate this big spiritual principle to something so physical. It felt a little odd to me when I first thought of this, but then I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't not think about it. I need to take care of you. You need to take care of me. And we all need to take care of total strangers. And it takes conscious awareness of our interdependence in every moment for us and the world to co-create a world where we can feel free to move about the cabin, where we can feel free to get up and dance. If we remember our inner freedom, then we know that it is ours and nothing, not a pandemic, not the actions we take in response to it, can restrict it. Conscious awareness of our absolute inner freedom can give us the strength to continue conscious awareness of our interdependence and the co-creation of a world that works for everyone. In the last week or so, I've heard and seen a number of people speak and respond regarding how they're living in this pandemic and how it has made them aware of their own sense of balance during this pandemic. In one example, it was awareness of personal spiritual practice, the tending to one's own divinity and what was needed. In another, it was the palpable need to be of service, to be with people, and how different that looks today from that person's normal. I believe that to live our best lives for ourselves and for the sake of all life, there is some balance or combination of these two, as I don't believe it's the same for everyone, some balance, some distribution between nurturing our inner freedom and nurturing our interdependence. The notion of balance is important because we can get out of whack in either direction. If we spend so much time being inside ourselves that we can miss what's going on in the world around us, if we can also be so out in the world that we can lose our center. If you need support tending to your divinity, to honing the spiritual practice that's right for you, reach out to a minister or practitioner. We are here for you. If you need help figuring out how you can nurture your interdependence, I know there are many ways, both local, national, global, where you can participate and engage, even under the constraints of a pandemic. We've talked about some of those ways here at Oneness, and I'm sure Reverend Brian, Reverend Jenna, and others in our community would be happy to guide you in any way. So please reach out. In closing, I asked my teenage son to consider this core principle and how it spoke to him. He responded that we can work together and be authentic. Be authentic. It can take strength and courage to speak and act from your divinity, from your core authenticity, and it just might bring you to tears, as it did me, from the joy of being the dance. For the sake of all life and for our interdependence, I invite you to live the truth of who you are. And now, please join me in affirmative prayer. So what I know is God is all there is. There is one life, and that life is God. And that life is my life now. And that life is the life of each person hearing these words. As I breathe in, I expand from that inner space. I expand and know this truth of God as all there is, always present, ever present, surrounding us, in us, filling us up with joy and peace and love and gratitude. I breathe again. It is such a glorious expansion to touch this divinity, to be this one with this greater presence that surrounds us all. And in this presence, I know my oneness with it. I know myself as a unique expression of the divine. And as I know myself as this, I know each and every person in the sound of hearing the sound of my voice, they too are this divine expression of oneness, this divine expression of God, divine expression of love and peace and joy. And this love and peace and joy surrounds everyone and expands, and it creates that space of peace and love and joy. And so I know this inner divinity, and I know this interdependence. And I know this for myself. I know this for each and every person. As we know and expand on our own divinity, we create that space in the world for divinity to shine through. I know that any change I make that takes me one step forward to divinity takes myself and everyone else around one step closer to creating that world where we know our interdependence, we know our oneness, we know our peace, we know our love, we know God as the truth of who we are. And knowing this truth of who we are, we know that we are connected to each and every person. There is one God. There is one God, and each one of us is a divine manifestation of that one God. We cannot be other than interdependent. And as we approach this knowledge of our interdependence, we shine brighter than we've ever shined before. The whole world shines brighter. And together we create that world that works for everyone. And so I am deeply grateful to know my divinity. I am deeply grateful to see the divinity in each and every person I encounter. I am so grateful to know my interdependence, to live my interdependence with everyone always. So deeply grateful that there's so many ways to express my divinity, so many ways to express my interdependence. I am so grateful for this community that allows me to shine through with my divinity, allows me to see the divinity in each and every person here. So deeply grateful. And in this space of great gratitude, I release this prayer into the law, knowing that it is so, knowing that it is done. And together we say, and so it is.
And so I just want to give a big shout out to a couple of firsts today. So thank you, Eamon, for stepping up to do our presiding today. It's the first time he's done that, and he did it on exactly about 15 minutes notice. So thank you so much. You were magnificent. We all love seeing and hearing from you more, and so thank you for doing that. And to Kathy Butler, our licensed practitioner, for her first sermon. Thank you so much. It was brilliant. It was awesome. I'm so just blessed to know that we have so many cool spiritual leaders in our community. And so thank you both for stepping in and stepping up today. And if you're someone that's interested in being a part of our Sunday services, reach out to us at info@csl.com or info@onenesscsl.com. And we can talk to you about what it takes to be serving in those ways if you have that desire. And lastly, I am praying and I'm asking all of you to pray for me to have dominion over my own life. Because right now, this ain't cutting it. And Kimberly is kicking my butt. So I'll take those prayers this week so we can catch up. You feel me? Peace.